Taehyung's path. My heart was thumping against my chest. My mind was running in dizzy circles, and my hands were trembling as I held him. His pretty head, resting on my chest, his limp body on top of mine, on his stomach. I ran my fingers through his hair, shaking, my other hand moving up and down his bare back. Under his shirt. Jillian had left. She didn't want to, but I made her. She ruined everything. Such a fucking whore. I really hadn't wished Jungkook would come over at such a bad time. What he saw was not what he was thinking. I'd never heard Jungkook like that. I just gave him a fucking speech about how much he means to me, but I don't even know how he felt about it. I kissed his forehead, closing my watery eyes. And resting my chin on the top of his head I swallowed, staring at the blank TV screen in front of me. I moved my eyes over to the window, where the moon and stars shone brightly. It had been hours, but I knew Jungkook was okay. He was breathing, and he looked healthy. As my eyes wandered over his face, I rested a finger on his cheek. He was so goddamn beautiful. I had imagined to be married to a pretty boy when I grew up, but not this pretty. He was more than I could ever ask for. I just had to make sure I didn't lose him. He began staring, and my heart began beating even faster as I lifted my hands off him as if I was hurting him. He moaned slightly, his face furrowing into a frowning expression, and then, his gorgeous eyes fluttered open, and he looked at me, blinking a couple times. Tay, hi. I whispered, making sure to reach over slowly and use my fingers to run down his scalp, pushing the hair out of his face. Jungkook, hi. He whispered back. My heart calmed down a little bit, and I gulped, leaning in a little closer. Taehyung, how are you feeling? Jungkook, huh? Taehyung, are you okay? Jungkook stared at me for a while, and then, he popped his tongue as if he was tasting his own spit. Jungkook, I don't know. He replied softly, rubbing his head, taking a good look around the room. Jungkook, where's Jillian? Taehyung, I have no idea, and I don't care. Jungkook turned back toward me, and then he sighed. He sounded so cute, it made me smile a little. Taehyung, I love you. Taehyung, what happened? Jungkook completely ignored my remark, which made my heart long for him a little more. He started to get up, and I frowned hurtedly, and grabbed his arms and began tugging him back to my chest. He turned toward me, frowning. Jungkook, Taehyung. Taehyung, Jungkook. He raised his eyebrows at me, and I raised mine back. Jungkook, I need to get home. He finally stated. Jin Hyung is gonna be worried about me. Taehyung, I already told him you were fine, and that you were staying over. Jungkook glared at me, and I sighed. Why are you mad? At me. Quote. Jungkook, I'm not. He grumbled. I'm just frustrated. Taehyung, then come sit here, princess, and talk to me. Jungkook, that's the point. I don't want to talk to anybody right now. Taehyung, if you talk it out with me, you'll feel better. He stared at me blankly. I'll make you feel better. Jungkook, you can't. He whispered. He was so quiet. It's about everything that has happened lately. I mean, I can't take so much Jillian anymore. And the only reason why Jillian is a problem is because of us. Quote. Jungkook's POV. I went home after that. I didn't want to stay. Taehyung got so upset. I don't know what's been happening with his emotions lately. I think after everything, something snapped in our relationship. I'm not being a bitch. There's so much stress a girl and a guy can go through in a relationship. I'm sure others have had to do the same things. I just needed some time to breathe. To get all this boyfriend shit off my mind and find something else to do. So, I'm sitting in the living room, minding my own business, searching through the channels for something comical to watch. Jin Hyung was currently at work, and it was a Friday afternoon. I groaned, rolling my eyes as I scrolled through channels like how you run a million times in the same circle. There's a soft knock on the door. I jump up from the couch, taking steady steps toward the sound. And as I open the door, Yumu is standing there, an apologetic look on his face. Yumu, hey, Jungkook. He says in the gentlest tone he has ever spoken in. I think we need to talk. Jungkook POV end. He stared at Yumu for a couple seconds, unsure of what he should do. Why are his eyes twinkling like that, with some sort of softness and care, and he don't know, but Jungkook didn't like it. Jungkook, number, is all he said, and then, he began to quickly shut the door. But Yumu stops it with his fist, and he steps inside, unwelcome, and shuts the door softly behind him. He glances at Jungkook with concern in his eyes, and Jungkook's heart begins to race. Jungkook, Yumu, get your ass out of my house. Yumu, Jungkook, like I said, I just wanna talk. Why in the world is he talking to me like that? This isn't the Yumu I've known lately. He gestured toward my couch calmly, trying to grasp my hand, but I whip it away, frowning as I slowly step back from him. Jungkook thought. Yumu, please, just sit on the couch with me. Jungkook, Yumu, I'm not falling for any of your damn tricks. He snapped. This is so stupid, you're so stupid. Quote. Yumu, thank you. He casually sat down on Jungkook's couch. And he grabbed his arm carefully and made him sit down. His eyes were gazing deeply into Jungkook, and Jungkook's chest was burning, his eyes seeming to spin in circles. Yumu, Jungkook, calm down. Jungkook, what do you want from me, Yumu? Jungkook was becoming angrier and angrier. He couldn't just fucking walk in his house and pretend like everything was normal, because it wasn't. Nothing between Yumu and him was normal. Yumu, I don't want anything from you. Yumu reached over and grasped his hand, and Jungkook shook it away, so then he firmly grasped his forearms, his lips inches from Jungkook. Jungkook once again tried pulling away, but his grip was tight and strong, and there was no use. Yumu, Jungkook, just listen. I'm not here to get anything from you, or hurt you, or... Jungkook, I'll call the police. He warned Yumu, and tell them what? He raised his eyebrows at Jungkook, and Jungkook was silent. Yumu, for harassing you, for hurting you, that's not what I'm doing. I just feel that I need to talk to you, about a little someone. Jungkook, there's nothing to talk about with Taehyung. He growled, and he once again raised his eyebrows. Yumu, oh, but how could you be so sure, Jungkook? Jungkook eye twitched in disgust. He couldn't believe this was happening. Yumu, I've been noticing lately that your relationship with him hasn't been so strong. I wonder why. Jungkook, stop. You are no one to say anything about our relationship. He demanded firmly. I don't want to talk about this. Yumu, I can make you feel better. Jungkook froze. I can make you feel better. Taehyung's words drifted in his head. Jungkook, no, you can't. He snapped. Yumu, you can never make me feel better. If anything, you always make me feel worse. Yumu, I'm sorry. He wrapped an arm around Jungkook and pulled Jungkook to him so Jungkook was laying on his chest. Jungkook once again started fighting against him, but he gripped onto his body hard, and there was no use. Yumu, but seriously, if you ever need something, and I mean ever, you come to me, okay? Jungkook, what are you doing? He asked, completely frustrated. You're acting weird. I'm done playing tricks with you, Yumu. I've given you a chance before, and I'm especially not giving one to you now. Yumu, I don't want a chance. He started hugging Jungkook, and my whole body tensed up. Yumu, I just want you to know that even though I've been a dick, you'll always mean something to me. I'll always be here if you need somebody. Jungkook, that's Jimin's job. Yumu, but maybe he won't always be there for you. Jungkook hated to admit it, but he was right. Jungkook groaned, and began pulling away once again. Jungkook, stop. He growled once he grabbed him again. This isn't right. I can't be doing this with you. I have a boyfriend that really cares about me. Yumu, bad boys can be good liars. Jungkook, oh my fucking gosh, shut up. He said loudly, just leave me alone, and I'll be happy. Yumu stared at him for a little while, and then he sighed, and got up, and casually started heading toward the front door. But as he opened it, he looked back at Jungkook, and Jungkook saw a pleading look in his eyes. Yumu, I just wanna let you know, I love you, Jungkook. Jungkook, bullshit. He growled, still sitting on the couch. Yumu, I mean it. And then he was gone. That whole week, this new transition started. Yumu was no longer a careless ass who just loved to mess with Jungkook, but instead, he was acting really supportive and caring, and it was screwing up Jungkook's mind. Of course, he didn't tell Taehyung. Why would he? If he figured out Yumu's new attitude, he would be so angry and jealous and suspicious, and go on a death hunt for him. He couldn't let Taehyung get in trouble again. He hasn't even been talking to Taehyung much lately. Not one hangout at all. He always asks, sometimes pleads for Jungkook to go to his house, or for him to come over. But Jungkook declined every single time. What was he so afraid of? So one day, on a Wednesday afternoon, he walked outside onto the sidewalk in front of his house. He was planning on walking downtown to the ice cream shop to meet Jimin. Just as he stepped onto the sidewalk, he see Yumu a little ways down, walking toward him. He's got this friendly smile on his face, but Jungkook glared at him coldly. He was still suspicious of his new little thing going on, and he quickly turned to walk the other direction. But Yumu hurries over to him, and puts a hand on his shoulder, facing Jungkook toward him. Yumu, hey, Jungkook. He says, and then, he plants a soft kiss on his cheek. Jungkook gasped, pulling away, pushing his chest with his hands. And it's not long before somebody grabs his shoulder, and shoves Yumu to the ground. Jungkook stares in shock at Taehyung, who's standing angrily beside him, his dark eyes extinguished with flames as he glares at Yumu. Taehyung, what the hell do you think you're doing to my baby boy? Taehyung growls, gripping Jungkook's waist tightly with one of his arms. Yumu glares back as he slowly stands up, his eyes not leaving Taehyung's face. Yumu, treating him better than you have. Lately is all Yumu says, and Taehyung snaps, and he launches toward him with angry fists. Jungkook groans, and grabs Taehyung before he can reach Yumu. Taehyung glares at Jungkook with an angry look in his eyes, and Jungkook gulped, suddenly scared. Once Taehyung saw the look in Jungkook's eyes, his eyes softened, and he grabbed him and hugged him tightly, his arms securely around Jungkook's waist, his lips kissing the left side of his neck. Jungkook closed his eyes, enjoying the feeling of his skin on him. Taehyung was breathing heavily with frustration, and Jungkook gulped, glaring at Yumu, who stood there, brushing the dirt off him. I'm sorry, Taehyung whispered in his ear. I didn't mean to explode like that, I just saw him kiss you and it made me angry. Quote. Jungkook, it's okay, I said softly. Taehyung pulls away, and he gently kisses Jungkook on the lips, and Jungkook rests his hands on his muscular chest, feeling his pecs underneath his shirt. Oh, how badly Jungkook wanted to take his shirt off at that moment. Taehyung glares back over at Yumu, both of his hands still gripping Jungkook's sides protective, and he rests a hand on the back of Jungkook's head and pulls him close to his chest, so Yumu can't touch him. Taehyung, don't fucking mess with him anymore. He growls. He's mine, and only mine. You've lost all your chances with him. Yumu glares back at him, and then he turns toward Jungkook, and his eyes soften. Yumu, you don't need to let him boss you around. Yumu says gently, and he reaches over to touch Jungkook, but Taehyung pulls Jungkook back, his eyes telling Yumu he was about to strike. Taehyung, don't. He demands, and Yumu silently pulls away, and turns and begins walking toward the direction he came from. Taehyung looks at Jungkook, staring into his eyes, and suddenly, Jungkook smells smoke on his breath. Jungkook, Taehyung, what have you been doing? He asked suspiciously, squinting his eyes at him as he pulled away. He stared at Jungkook for a couple seconds, before closing his eyes and sighing. Jungkook rolled his eyes, already angry. Jungkook, I told you to stop. Taehyung, you don't know how fucking hard it is to give up. He snaps. It's just cigars, I'm done with everything else. Quote. Jungkook, it doesn't matter, you said you would stop just for me. Taehyung growls in frustration, rubbing his forehead with his fingers, his eyes closed. Jungkook glared at him, shaking his head. Taehyung, every time I fucking save you from something, I do something wrong. He moans, looking at Jungkook. For once, Jungkook see a bunch of watery puffiness in his eyes. Taehyung, but honestly, this is what I do. Jungkook stared at him, swallowing, and then, Jungkook looked away, taking a big, shuddering sigh. Taehyung, look at me. He says gently, but Jungkook don't listen. Jungkook, please. Jungkook, when will shit ever stop? He whisper, and Taehyung doesn't say anything. Jungkook look over at him and see that he's staring at him with worry and concern in his eyes. He wants me. Jungkook, when will all the Jillian and Yumu drama, and the drugs, and all this stop? Taehyung, it doesn't matter. He says softly, and he reaches out to grab Jungkook, but he kind of pull away, and his eyes fill with hurt. Jungkook, I don't think we can be together anymore. He say, refusing to look at him. Jungkook afraid to look at him. He don't want to look at him. Jungkook, and it'll be hard. Taehyung, don't, he pleads, and Jungkook can tell he's on the verge of tears, his voice cracking, becoming weaker. Please don't, Jungkook. Jungkook, I need to go. Taehyung, wait, please. Jungkook heart aches as Taehyung grabs him and wraps his arm around him from behind, his chest on Jungkook's back, and he leans over, tucking his face in his neck. Please don't leave me, Jungkook. Jimin, I need Jimin, Jungkook thought. Jungkook, seriously Taehyung, I need to go. Jungkook pushed his arms away, not looking at him, and he ran down the sidewalk, toward town. He doesn't follow him. Jimin, do you actually love him? Jungkook looked over unsteadily at Jimin, who raised his eyebrows at Jungkook as he sipped his coffee. They had decided to go to Starbucks instead of the ice cream shop. Jungkook, I don't even know. He whispered. Jungkook heard his sigh. Jungkook, I'm almost positive I do. Jimin, why not? Jungkook, I never said I didn't love him. Jimin, you sure don't act like you love him. Jungkook glared over at him, and he looked down at his phone, scrolling through his Instagram feed. Jimin, I'm sorry, I'm your best friend and all, but I'm speaking honestly, because I don't lie. If you truly loved him, you'd give him more chances, and you'd accept him the way he is. Jungkook, I do accept him, Jimin. He said kind of angrily, chewing on his smoothie straw. Jungkook, I accept that he used to be a player and that he's a bad boy. I just don't know how to handle it. And damn Jillian and Yumu are always getting in the damn way, so it's not like I'm completely blaming Taehyung. Jimin, whatever you say. Jimin muttered, and Jungkook rolled his eyes, and stood up. Jimin frowned. Jimin, where are you going? Jungkook, getting another smoothie. Jimin, your fourth one. Jungkook, what, I drink things when I'm upset. Jimin sneered and rolled his eyes, and Jungkook went up to the front and once again ordered another smoothie. When he came back, Jimin was looking out the window, frowning at something. Jungkook slid into the chair in front of him, and looked out, and groaned when he saw Yumu rushing through the street towards Starbucks. Jungkook, great, he mumbled. Jimin, is he gonna put on his little fake act? Again, Jimin asked. Jungkook, no idea, Jimin. Jungkook rolled his eyes as he heard the bell ring, which indicated somebody had entered Starbucks. Maybe he didn't see us. Jimin, not so sure about that. Jimin was staring behind Jungkook, and Jungkook heard footsteps approaching, and his facial expression changed to disgust. Yumu stood right in front of their table, completely ignoring Jimin and looking at Jungkook, panting. Yumu, Jungkook, we need to talk about earlier. Jungkook, there's nothing to talk about, now leave me alone. Yumu, no seriously, I'm really sorry. His voice became calmer, and I'm sorry that Taehyung did that. Quote. Jungkook, you're sorry about Taehyung. Jungkook suddenly grew angry. Just leave him the fuck alone, okay? And And do me a favor and leave me and Jimin alone too. Jungkook could see Jimin in the corner of my eye slowly nodding. Yumu, Jungkook, I don't want you to get angry with me, I did nothing wrong. Jungkook, oh my god. You make me wanna kill the world. He snapped bitterly. Yumu, that's fine. Yumu began tugging at Jungkook's arm. Yumu, just come to my house, and I'll calm you down. I have seen what happened between you and Taehyung, and I know you need comfort. Jungkook, I got all the comfort I need, you stalker. Jungkook growled, gesturing madly toward his best friend, who silently sat there. Yumu, please. Yumu's eyes were filled with lust, and Jungkook began shaking his head, but then, Jimin stopped him. Jimin, Jungkook, can I have a word with you? He asked, and Jungkook glared over at him, but slowly nodded. He pulled Jungkook into the bathroom. Jimin, I think you should go with Yumu. Jungkook, what? He asked loudly. Are you crazy? Quote. Jimin, shush. He hissed. And no, I'm not. Just see what he's up to. And I'll secretly follow you guys. I'll park by the alley near his place. See what he wants and shit, maybe it's important. Quote. Jungkook, there's no way I'm going anywhere alone with Yumu. He said. Things could happen. Quote. Jimin, like what? He raised her eyebrows. You know better than to do anything with him. And if he starts to do things, scream and run outside, and I'll be there. Jungkook sighed, rubbing his face frustratingly. Jungkook, fine, but I'm never gonna do shit like this again. He muttered, and Jimin silently nodded, and they left the bathroom. Yumu was still standing by the table, and his eyes lifted at them as they approached him, and he took a couple steps toward Jungkook. Yumu, are you coming? He asked, his voice filled with eagerness and hope. Jungkook, yeah, he said softly, and a large smile swept across Yumu's face. He took his car keys out of his pocket. Jungkook hugged Jimin, goodbye, not really, and then, he followed Yumu out to his car. It was weird, being in his house again. It reminded him of when Yumu and he were happy together, which put an angry thought in his mind, of ever even thinking about them again. Jungkook had moved on from him. He just wished he had moved on from him too. Yumu silently walked into the living room, with Jungkook keeping a cautious distance behind him. He sat on one end of the couch, and Jungkook sat on the other end. Jungkook gulped. He was nervous. He didn't know what Yumu was up to. Yumu, are you okay? He asked gently after a moment of silence. God, every time he talked to me in such a soothing way, I hated him more. Why was he doing this? Playing with me, Jungkook thought. Jungkook, stop doing this. H demanded bitterly, and Yumu frowned. I don't know what you're up to lately, but it's just sickening me. Quote. Yumu, I'll tell you why. He replied calmly, and Jungkook raised his eyebrows at him. Yumu, I actually truly feel sorry for the way I've been treating you. Plus, I know in my heart that Taehyung is not a good guy. I'm sure he's out fucking some other girl behind your back right now. Jungkook, he's not like that, dipshit. He growled, and Yumu sighed, slowly shaking his head, looking down at his clasped hands. Yumu, it's okay, most boys would say something like that about a person like Taehyung. Jungkook, if you brought me here so I can listen to you harass Taehyung, then I don't want to be here. Yumu, trust me, that's not why I brought you here. Yumu stood up and went into the kitchen, and came back a minute later with freshly cold banana matuyu. Here, he gently handed Jungkook one, and Jungkook glared at him suspiciously as he got comfortable on the couch next to Jungkook, popping his can open and taking a sip, his eyes on Jungkook. What? Quote. Jungkook, stop it. Yumu, I'm not doing anything. His voice had the slightest bit of annoyance. Good. I wanted him to be annoyed. I wanted him to hate me. Now, it's okay to tell me everything. I'll just be here to support you. Drink it, it's your fave banana milk. Jungkook hesitated a little bit, but he started to take a sip. Jungkook, like I said before, I don't want your damn support, I already have plenty of it. Yumu, really? He raised his eyebrows. One person. Wow, hey boy, you need at least one guy. Quote. Jungkook, Jimin. Yumu, he won't always be there for you. Jungkook, Jinhyung. Yumu, you know you barely tell him anything about Taehyung. Jungkook, so what makes you think I'm gonna tell you about Taehyung? Yumu was silent. Jungkook looked down at his hands, beginning to think about it. Talking to a guy about it would be nice. But he can't trust Yumu. Jungkook looked back up at him, and he had a pleading look in his eyes. Yumu, please. Asterisk now, you're gonna tell me everything, Yumu thought. Jungkook POV. I don't know why, but I spilled everything out to him. He listened carefully as I started crying with frustration, talking about Taehyung, and Jillian, and even Yumu himself, too. And once I was done, he just silently grabbed me and hugged me tightly, letting me lay my body down on him. I wasn't really thinking at that moment. I don't know what happened to my body and my mind, I suddenly feel so hot, I was emotional, and weak. My legs felt like jelly, my arms felt like helpless sticks, and my head was heavy and dizzy. So when Yumu kissed me, my lips just kissed back. I don't know what happened much after that. I was frustrated. I was confused. I was broken. My actions were entirely a surprise to me. All I really remember was Yumu deepening the kiss, and then trying to climb on top of me, but I snapped out of my phase. I got out of there quickly. And from the way I was acting, Jimin asked me, "Jimin, what happened to you? Why are you so sweating?" Jungkook, "I don't know. But I am feeling so hot." Jimin understood it, and parked the car at restaurant. He buy something and came back. Jungkook, "W, where were you?" Jimin, "Here, drink this. You will feel better." Jungkook, "W, what is this?" Jimin, "Just drink it. Maybe he gives you drugs. That's why so are feeling hot." After that, Jimin drove to his home, and Jungkook slept there. Jimin called Jin, telling him everything was alright and that my phone had died so I couldn't contact him. He seemed a little suspicious, but he went along with it, and agreed that I could spend a night, although it was a school night. So that Monday, Jimin kind of stayed by my side the whole day. I didn't say much, he didn't say much. There was really only two things on my mind. Why in the fuck would I kiss Yumu? Even if I was drunk, how can I kiss him back? And how was I going to explain this to Taehyung? I didn't even know if we were a couple anymore. I mean, did I break up with him? Or did I just warn him? I hadn't checked my phone in a while, and I didn't want to. I was afraid of how much messages from him were gonna be in there. So everything was a little relaxing until I saw Yumu walking toward me and Jimin in the hallway. I gasped, and Jimin frowned, and then he looked ahead and saw him. He had almost an apologetic look on his face as he approached us. "Yumu, Jungkook, I think we should talk." His voice was soft. "Jimin, get the fuck away from him." Jimin barked protectively, kind of pushing him away. "Don't you think you've screwed his mind up enough?" Quote. "Yumu, I didn't mean for that fucking kiss to happen." Yumu turned toward me, a worried look in his eye. "I swear, I got a little too caught up with myself, and I just felt sorry for you and Taehyung." "Jungkook, don't lie to me." I growled lowly. "You know you meant for it to happen. You gave me a drug. I have a boyfriend." Yumu, "No, you don't." Yumu had a warning look in his eye. "Taehyung doesn't deserve you." Jungkook, "If anything, I don't deserve Taehyung." I snapped loudly. In fact, it was so loud, everybody in the hallway turned toward me, frowning looks on their faces. I glanced at everybody angrily before shouldering past Yumu and my best friend, my mind seething with rage. Why was all this happening? I needed somebody. I needed comfort that I could use. I needed Taehyung. I didn't know where my feet were taking me. They just sometimes had a mind of their own. And when I finally looked up from staring deeply at the ground, I found Taehyung's house looming in front of me. Suddenly, seeing it in sight, my stomach began to churn, and I became dizzy. I didn't even know if I was ready to talk to him, to even see him yet. But my feet brought me forward. They guided me up to his steps, to his front door. I stood there for the longest time, my eyes examining the white wood. Yes, I had to do this. I hated being in such a shitty relationship with him. I creaked the door open. Immediately, a disgusting odor of alcohol and smoke hit me, and I squinted my eyes, and covered my mouth entirely, and had a coughing fit. I gently shut the door behind me, and scurried up the stairs. The shower was on. As I walked in the hallway, I saw that the bathroom door was closed, the light shining through the crack at the bottom of the door. I silently walked past it, and opened up his bedroom door, and gasped, covering my mouth. It was ruined. Entirely ruined. The bed sheets wore at different corners of the room, the mattress laying on the floor, the headboard cracked. The pictures were smashed, glass pieces all over the carpet floor, stained with blood at the ends. His side lamps were also destroyed, laying limply on the ground. Clothes and hangers were thrown out of the closet and spread across the floor. There was blood prints on his window, shaded with the ripped-up curtains. I turned and ran back down the stairs, to check to see how the rest of the house was. It was demolished by his rage. I didn't even notice anything. The couch cushions were ripped up, the stuffing coming out. The TV was on the fucking ground, laying on its back, the remote was smashed and cracked. The kitchen was terrible. Chairs were snapped broken, the table was turned over, the cabinets were laid open, and glass plates were in pieces on the ground. This was scary. What if he was angry at me? I glanced toward the front door, debating on whether I should make a run for it. Then, the shower water turned off. No, I was gonna stay here and talk to him. I rushed back up the stairs and into his room, jumping over the broken pieces of glass and furniture. I waited by the window, staring shockingly at everything. Then, I heard the bathroom door open. And him sniffling. I couldn't do this. I couldn't. I would start crying, and maybe he would hurt me. I mean, if he did this to his house, there was no way in fuck he'd be calm with me. So I jumped in his closet. I cracked the doors a little open, and peered outside. Taehyung walked into the bedroom with just a white towel wrapped around his waist. Shudders and shivers ran up and down my spine as I stared at his gloriously gorgeous body. I missed his touch, I missed his skin, I missed his eyes. I missed him. But his face wasn't like normal. He had lost most of the color, his eyes were red and puffy and bloodshot, watery with tears. He had cuts all on his body, and dry blood spots and cuts on his knuckles. He bent down, picking up a grey and blue t-shirt, and some jeans and black boxes, and then he dropped the towel. I quickly looked away, squinting my eyes shut, thinking and kind of chuckling in my mind with how I was going to explain this to Jimin. Yeah, I was sitting creepily in his closet, watching him take his towel off to reveal his naked body. And I saw his tartar. Quote. When I looked back at him, I realized he had already fully dressed. He glanced around the room, emotionless, and then, he sighed, running his hand through his hair, and he nearly turned and began leaving. So my damn elbow thought it was a fantastic moment to bang on the wall and make a large thud sound. Oh, great. Jungkook POV end. Taehyung, who the fuck is in here? Taehyung called out loudly, and Jungkook's whole body shuddered, realizing what he had to do before he found him. Jungkook, me. He said meekly, crawling out of the closet and standing in front of him, Jungkook's whole body shaking with fright. Taehyung's bloodshot eyes settled on him, and then, instead of the angry, emotionless look he had, his eyes filled with softness, and Jungkook saw his chest heave with a sad sigh, almost like a surprised reaction. Taehyung, Jungkook. His voice trailed off, and he began to slowly approach Jungkook, his hand reaching out to grasp Jungkook. Jungkook stepped away from him, afraid, and he frowned hurtedly. Taehyung, I promise, I'm not gonna hurt you. Jungkook stood there silently, and watched. As he took cautious steps toward him before coming at Jungkook at full speed, and swooping him in his arms, picking him up and wrapping his muscular arms around Jungkook's body. Taehyung buried his mouth in his neck. And he bawled. Jungkook wrapped his legs around his waist, Jungkook's fingers gripping onto his shirt from the backside, and Jungkook closed his eyes and rested his cheek onto his shoulder, feeling secure to be tightly in Taehyung's embrace again. He really had to cry, but he didn't want to. Jungkook listened to him cry for the longest time. He don't know how long, but it seemed like forever. And soon, he was just softly sniffling, his hands gripping onto Jungkook tightly like if he didn't, Jungkook would run away. Jungkook kept on thinking. Was he mad at me? Were we like, back together now? How was he this strong to carry me for this long? He thought. Jungkook patched him up. Jungkook sat on his kitchen counter, him standing between his legs in front of him, and Jungkook used alcohol and wipes to clean his wounds. He grunted and moaned, holding onto Jungkook's body tightly as Jungkook disinfected and washed away the blood. His lips were on his temple, his dark eyes squinted shut. Jungkook, I can help you clean all of this up, he whispered, dabbing a cotton ball to a deep cut on his cheek. He growled slightly, his hand holding Jungkook's sides tighter as he tried to break through the pain. Taehyung, this isn't your fault. His voice was harsh yet gentle. This is all my shit I need to clean up. You don't deserve any of this. Quote. Jungkook, no, you don't deserve any of this, he said quietly. Taehyung, no Jungkook, don't fucking say that, he barked, pulling away from the cotton ball and looking at Jungkook straight in the eyes. I did all this shit because I was angry with myself. I drank, and I fucking smoked weed. I destroyed my house. I need to clean it up. Quote. Jungkook, well, you wouldn't have done it if it weren't for me. Taehyung, don't, he replied calmly, and he picked up Jungkook's hand, his eyes still averted to him, and he kissed his knuckles. Softly. Taehyung, I love you. Jungkook sighed, and grabbed his hands and began cleaning his bloody knuckles. He stared at him silently, his shirt off, and Jungkook glanced once in a while at his abs, and the tattoo on his side. Then, Taehyung bent in at a steady pace, and kissed Jungkook, his lips greedily grasping onto Jungkook, begging for him to kiss back. Jungkook kissed back, and his tongue slipped into Jungkook's mouth, and Taehyung moaned slightly, his hands leaving Jungkook, and they cupped both sides of his jaw, lifting his face a little so he could kiss him better. Jungkook wrapped his arms around his waist as his hands grabbed Jungkook's butt and pulled his body closer to his, and then, they returned to his jaw, his kissing becoming more lustful. For some reason, this reminded Jungkook of when Yumu and he kissed. It was most definitely not like this, but it just happened, and Jungkook quickly pulled away, gasping for breath, refusing to look in Taehyung's concerned eyes. He didn't say anything. He just grabbed Jungkook and hugged him tightly, resting his chin on the top of his head, and heaving a big sigh. Jungkook had to tell him. He just didn't know how. Jungkook POV. Yumu, Yumu, Yumu. I glanced continuously over at Taehyung as we both picked up the shattered glass pieces in his room. We were silent. He tried arguing with me, telling me I shouldn't be helping him. But I'm going to. It's the right time to be straightforward with him and tell him about what happened between myself and Yumu. Plenty of times, I stopped and opened my mouth to say what I needed to say, but my lips would start quivering, and my stomach would do flips, and then I'd close my mouth and continue cleaning. I shouldn't be so afraid. Taehyung wouldn't do anything to hurt me, right? Jungkook, Yumu and I kissed. They were so fast, I didn't even hear myself. Taehyung froze for a second, and then he straightened himself up, his shirt still off, and he looked over at me. Bitter coldness. Taehyung, what? Jungkook, he kissed me. I said too quickly. I wanted to say it slick and quick, or otherwise, I'd struggle on my words. And I kinda kissed back. I felt my whole body vibrating with how shaky I was. The glass pieces in my palm were clanking quietly against each other as I kept my eyes on Taehyung's. Taehyung didn't say anything. He just slowly looked down at the ground and began stepping over things to walk toward me. I took small, cautious steps back, unsure of what he was about to do next. Then, he was standing right in front of me, his chest nearly against mine, and I saw a bunch of softness, almost sadness in his usually bitter dark eyes. Then, he quickly grasped my jaw, bent down and kissed me passionately. I was a little drawn back by his reaction, but I didn't want to trade it for anything else. I wrapped my arms around his shoulders and kissed him back, and he held me closer, one hand right above my butt, the other in the middle of my back. We shared the kiss for a long time, and he pulled away, his eyes on me sadly as he lifted one hand on my cheek, where he gently stroked it. Taehyung, why? He whispered.